Hello, everybody, and welcome to the April Lunch and Learn series with Public Service University in the city of Albuquerque and the Green Team. We're glad to have you all back with us this month. And this month, we're going to be talking about air quality. So just want to welcome everybody. We have several people across the city at different sites, and their groups are logged in to see the training. And for those of you who are logged in, we're going to be taking questions at the end. And we're just really glad that you're here today. I just want to remind you that we do this every month. We have different lunch and learns on different topics here at Public Service University. We're the training division for the city of Albuquerque. And we're glad that you joined us today because we have a really exciting guest. So today's guest is Dan Gates. And Dan is with the Environmental Health Department. So we're glad to be able to have environmental health this month. Environmental health is actually going to be doing the lunch and learn for this month and next month. This month we're talking about wood burning. Next month we're going to be talking about ozone in the air. All right, here we go. So we want to welcome Dan Gates, our guest today, Senior Environmental Health Scientist on staff with the Environmental Health Department's Air Quality Program. He has a degree in architecture from the University of New Mexico and has worked for the city's Albuquerque Wastewater Utility Division for 6 years, including 2 years as an intern. During his time, he helped establish the pollution prevention program within the division. And Dan has been with the air quality program for 20 years. Little story, Dan and I have actually known each other for 32 years because we actually were RAs in the dorms back at UNM when we went to college together. So I know it's crazy. So, Dan, you're not allowed to tell any stories today. Among numerous responsibilities, he operates the pollen counting program, issues the daily air quality index, validates and submits air quality data to the EPA, and evaluates air quality data for attainment purposes. So we're really excited to have Dan on today. So Dan, if you'll go ahead and turn your microphone on and turn your camera on, I will go ahead. There you are, Dan. Welcome, glad to have you here. All right, so Dan, I'm going to go ahead and share your screen so that you can go ahead and get started. And there we go. So your screen should be coming up
here. Like this. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is, oops, that was supposed to be at the very beginning. We're going to be talking about wood burning and how it impacts air quality in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County area. And this really started a few years back when we were looking at some of our data. And what I'm going to do is hopefully show that the data supports the presence of wood burning impacting area residents in the Bernalillo County area and Albuquerque as well. So we'll start off with, why is residential wood smoke a concern? Well, EPA has noted that residential wood smoke contains PM 2.5, which is particulate matter 2.5 microns or smaller, carbon monoxide, various toxic pollutants, including benzene, formaldehyde, and climate gases, including methane and black carbon. And black carbon and benzene are two of the things that we're going to talk about today. And according to EPA estimates, wood stoves, hydronic heaters are wood-fired boilers, and fireplaces emit more than 345,000 tons of PM 2.5 into the air throughout the country each year, and usually that's mostly during the winter months. And if you put that into perspective, that 345,000 tons is 690 million pounds of PM 2.5. Nationally, residential wood combustion accounts for 44% of the total stationary and mobile polycyclic organic matter emissions, nearly 25% of all area source air toxic cancer risk, and 15% of non-cancer respiratory effects. Now, to put that into perspective, you have to realize that nationally, only about 2.1% or about 2.5 million of US households use wood as their primary fuel. And 7.7% or about 9 million use wood as a secondary heat source. So this is also an international issue. Germany began addressing wood burning as an impact on particulate matter in 2008. And they noticed that particulate emissions from wood burning households exceeded their exhaust emissions from road transport for the first time in 2008. During the winter months, they found that wood burning can produce up to a quarter of their total particulate matter concentration that they monitor for. And in September 2017, the mayor of London called for a complete ban on wood burning due to the impact on their fine particulate concentrations. Now, I had this really nice video of a BBC reporter in Greece, and he's basically talking about the same thing.
One of the main concerns about the rise in wood burning is the increased pollution, the impact that this is all having on the environment. We've come up to a high vantage point overlooking Thessaloniki, and you can see just how hazy the city looks. It's a foggy morning in general, but experts say that this has become accentuated by all that wood burning, and that smog has now become the norm across the major cities of Greece. The fear of what impact all this wood burning is having on the environment has led to a new project being launched here at 7 mobile testing stations for air quality around Thessaloniki. Let me just show you how it works. Thanasis, one of the chemists, comes up to this unit every day. He removes the head of the unit. The air passes through this gauze at the top. The coarse particles are trapped in this layer here, so they are not allowed to get through to the filter beneath. And then Thanasis removes the entire unit to reveal the filter, which has been in place for the last 24 hours. You can see how dirty it is. This is all the chemical pollution that has been built up here in the last 24 hours in this unit alone. It will be sent off to a laboratory, and a clean filter, you can see the difference there, the clean filter is put in place. I'll give that back to Thanasis, and held there for 24 hours to see what is thrown up by it by tomorrow. And this project will be in place for the next few weeks in order to assess the overall impact of the wood burning on the air around Thessaloniki. And this mass of machines constantly measures the air quality around the city, not simply during the 24-hour samples that we've seen on the rooftop. In this machine, the concentration of air particles is measured, and down here you see the distribution. The results are then sent to the municipality for analysis. Clearly, the authorities in all big Greek cities are concerned to provide clean air for their citizens, but the current trend towards burning wood has made that all the more pressing.
So why did we start looking at wood smoke as an issue? Well, part of our mission is to identify sources of air pollution that can impact area residents. And a couple of years ago, we started this particulate matter email alert system. And so every time certain particulate matter goes over a certain level of concentration, we get an email alert. And somebody finally noticed and said, we seem to be getting a lot of email alerts during the winter. And as an example, December 2016 to January 2017, we received 165 alerts just for particulate matter 2.5 microns and smaller. Compare that to the summer of June through July of 2017, where we only received 50 alerts. So one person finally came up with the question, can we see the impact of wintertime wood burning in our data? And the simple answer to that, after a quick and dirty look at our data, is yes, we can. And so in our monitoring data, we do see elevated values of particulate matter and gaseous pollutants when compared to the summer months. And this is sort of what that looks like. This is one day in the winter. These two are the winter months. This is carbon monoxide, and this is black carbon. These two are the summer months. This is carbon monoxide, and that's black carbon. And what's really distinctive here, and we'll see this here in a little bit, is that this pattern, in the winter months, we see this really strong spike that occurs right around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That is outside of what would be normal commuting times for vehicles, which is typically right around in this range. In the winter, commuting, and then in the evenings, when people are settled down into their homes, we see an increase in black carbon and carbon monoxide. So this is telling us that something else is going on besides normal traffic patterns within our data. And we see a similar pattern in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here, it's not as early in the morning, but 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. But this layover here is telling us that something is going on in the evening. And you can see that it's happening here in the late evening hours as well, similar to what we see in our pattern. We also see this in Tibet. This was a study that was done on black carbon. They have this little spike here at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Later during the day, in the morning, you see a little peak. Again, in the late evening hours, you see that high peak of black carbon. So why do people use wood? Well, in New Mexico and Bernalillo County area, well, a lot of people, it's considered a renewable source, and a lot of people don't like using petroleum products, and so they'll prefer to use what is a renewable resource. It's also readily available. Oftentimes it can be cheaper than other heating sources, and in some situations, if you go out and gather it yourself and you know a friend that's got land, you can be paying nothing but the price of the gas to go get it. Federal lands and state lands, anywhere from $20 to $40 per cord. Wood could also be a sustainable heating source, and this was up for discussion on a number of sites that I looked at, where it was estimated that for our area, 5 to 10 acres per household would be sustainable. Well, that would mean that Bernalillo County itself would need an additional 1 to 2 million acres of land just to make that a sustainable resource as a heating source for all the residents of Bernalillo County. So why not wood? Well, it affects our air quality. It reduces our wintertime visibility. Part of that is we see smog. When we see inversions, we can't see the Sandias very well, and that's part of it, is this particulate matter that gets put into the air. It can affect everyone's health, and it can impact primarily on the elderly and youth, but it can impact everyone. You also see an increased exposure to various pollutants like that we talked about before. It can also damage vegetation. And if you don't go out and collect your own wood, it can be an expensive heat source, and you can pay upwards of $250 or more per cord delivered. And it may also increase your home insurance rates. So one of the things that we were looking at was, why could this be such an impact? And one of the things we looked at was population growth. And in 1985 to 2017, the three counties of Sandoval, Bernalillo, and Valencia counties grew from just a little over 500,000 people, which was about 38% of New Mexico population, to 895,000, which is now about 42% of New Mexico's population. So our population has grown, but also as a metro area, our percentage of the state population has also grown. And using the federal estimate of how many wood-burning households that would give us, between the three counties, about a little over 27,000 wood-burning households. And I think that estimate is a little low. If you look at an area in Klamath Falls, Oregon, this area is in non-attainment for PM 2.5. They've just come into maintenance, and they're going to be in this situation for probably a good 10, 15 years. The wood-burning stoves are estimated to emit 8 tons of benzene during the wood-burning season. Our estimate just for Bernalillo County is 14 tons. If all the wood-burning appliances were to be changed to non-wood-burning heating sources, the EPA and the Klamath Falls, Oregon DEQ say that benzene emissions from residential heating would be near zero. So you can see that there's an impact from just wood burning itself on such a pollutant as benzene. Now, pollution from wood burning, in 1993, an EPA study identified over 70 pollutants from wood burning, and that includes fine particulates, a number of hazardous air pollutants, and benzene, and other things called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. And these are a number of chemicals, and you'll find them every time you grill your meat. Or if you go to a restaurant, you're going to be consuming PAHs. If you're grilling at your home, you're going to be breathing them in. Every time you cook, you're going to be breathing in and consuming PAHs. So it's something that as humans has been part of our system for a very long time. Now, what are the health effects of PM 2.5? Well, it can affect your lungs and your heart, and scientific studies have linked it to premature death in people with heart and lung disease, non-fatal heart attacks, irregular heartbeat, aggravated asthma, amongst other things. Now, the health effects of benzene, and really there's not much else you can say about it, is that benzene is known to cause cancer. You can look up more on this if you would like to, because it really does have to do with leukemia and other cancers of the blood cells. Now, PAHs are everywhere, and it's something that we've been exposed to pretty much since the dawn of time, and our metabolism has adapted to handle frequent low-level exposures. But that being said, a University of Stockholm, Sweden study found that wood-burning homes had roughly 4 times the total PAH cancer potency compared to non-wood-burning homes. Another study found that in homes that burned wood compared to homes that did not burn wood, they saw an increase of fine particulates of upwards of 26%. This right here. Benzene upwards of 29%, but PAHs, they saw an increase of up to 400%. And one of the PAHs that we're going to be talking about is benzoapyrene. And an International Agency for Research on Cancer considers benzoapyrene as probably carcinogenic to humans. So what did we see in the data? So I looked at data in two different areas. I looked at the National Emissions Inventory, and that shows wood burning as a source of hazardous air pollutants and particulate matter pollutants. And we looked at our air monitoring data, and that data showed increases in pollutants during the wood burning season. It also showed increases in markers of biomass burning, and those biomass, which includes wood burning for home use, cooking, and other sources. We see an increase in black carbon, potassium, which is a primary marker for wood burning, and PM2.5. Now, the National Emission Inventory is public. You can look at all the data right here at this website. It's also a comprehensive and detailed estimate of air emissions. That includes criteria pollutants such as CO, ozone, NO2, and the precursors such as NOx, NO. And it also has a list of hazardous air pollutants from air emissions, and that includes our benzene and our PAHs. Now, the NEI lists 33 hazardous air pollutants associated with residential wood fuel combustion. That's the title of what they call it, residential wood fuel combustion. And we're going to look at benzene really quick, and we're going to look at benzoapyrene and see what the NEI has to say about those two. So what you have is here, you have the top five. The top five constitutes 87.5% of the total NEI estimated emissions for benzene. And right here in the middle of them is residential wood burning, or consumption. The primary one is mobile, the secondary one is mobile, the tertiary one here. And this is our 14 tons per year. You can see here that mobile is also the fourth one here on the list. Down here you see commercial cooking. So it's something that is part of our lives as well, but you're talking about some very large concentrations of benzene. And this is just for Bernalillo County. This does not include Sandoval or Valencia County. Now, benzoapyrene, again, falls third in our category. Our primary one, again, is mobile. Our secondary, again, is mobile. But our third is still fuel combustion. And this is right around 32 pounds per year. 31.7 is what this estimate is. And you can see here, mobile on-road diesel heavy-duty vehicles constitutes 12.06%, and that is right around 29.5 pounds per year. So you can see between those two, they're actually very close. I'm actually surprised that residential wood burning estimate is that high. So what did our air monitoring data? So I'm going to show you two sites, Del Norte High School, which is right here in the middle of the city, and the South Valley down here in the South Valley. And one of the reasons we looked at this data is because we have very good data for PM2.5. We have very good data for both sites, black carbon. And Del Norte is the only site that we had potassium. And it's one sample every third day. So massaging the data was a little more difficult when we look at potassium, but I'll show you that. I think it's our second to last slide. So what did we see? We saw a 44% increase in PM2.5 between the summer to winter months. It was fairly consistent in the distribution, 42% in the summer and 58% in the winter for Del Norte, 40% in the summer to 60% compared to the winter in the South Valley. The concentration is higher in the South Valley, but I thought the ratios were interesting in that they were both fairly consistent. We saw a 103% increase in black carbon summer to winter. And again, the distribution between them summer to winter were fairly the same, but again, black carbon was still higher in the South Valley. Now, potassium was interesting. We saw a 126% increase in potassium from the one site, summer to winter, 31% to 69%. And if we were looking at it from the standpoint that a good portion of this was caused by wood burning, it would be nice to see this data coming from the South Valley as well. So what did we see over the long term? Well, here we started off 1/3/2015, and we ended here in December of 2016. This area right here is the summer months of 2015, and right here are the summer months of 2016. Now, what you'll see, other than a few points, is you'll see an absence of black carbon and potassium in the higher concentrations in the summer months than what you see in the winter in 2015, 2015 to 2016, and winter 2016. What is interesting, I always like this, is that we did have 2 days that were outliers here that were both July 5th of 2015 and July 5th of 2016. And that typically could probably be related to July 4th. A lot of potassium is used in fireworks. This day down here was actually July 2nd of 2016. So what we're looking at here is we're actually seeing that, yes, during the winter we see increased PM2.5 and potassium in the winter months. And to me, that's indicative of some level of biomass wood burning that's occurring during the winter. Now, conclusions are a little hard on this one because there's a lot of data that we would like to look at, and a lot more analysis that should go into this. But the NEI and the monitoring data do point toward winter wood burning as an impact on area residents. The NEI data identifies wood burning as a significant source of air pollutants in Bernalillo County. And for those that really like to use wood because it's a sustainable heating source, well, if you're using it daily or even every other day, it probably isn't, especially in areas with limited natural renewable resources like we have here in Bernalillo County area. Now, for those of you that do like to use wood, we do recommend that you install and maintain an EPA certified wood stove or pellet stove, and that you use dry, well-seasoned wood. And part of that is because of this. Your fireplace tends to produce this much fine particulate, 28 pounds per, I forget what the MMBTUs is, million BTUs of heat output for the heat source type. Uncertified wood stoves, again, 4.6. And you can see there's a huge difference when you get to the EPA certified stoves to the pellet stoves. And what's even more important to put into consideration is that if you do use a wood burning heating appliance, that you compare that to what even an oil furnace or a gas furnace produces. And I think that's it. I think I'm open for questions. Tom?
Let me hop back on here. So go ahead and keep your camera up there, Dan. Wow.
Right.
So that, you know, it's amazing to actually take a look at the data. And these are the kind of things that a lot of times I don't think a lot of residents or folks with a fireplace think about in terms of what's actually going into the air. I also thought it was really interesting what happens around the 4th of July, because some of those numbers seem pretty high as well during that time of year. Yeah, I'm waiting for some questions here from folks. So we want to give Dan an opportunity to answer questions and give some feedback that you all that are participating may have in relation to wood burning. Dan, I do have a quick question for you while we're waiting for some folks to chime in here. What happens to the air when we use a Duraflame or a wax log?
Well, anything that doesn't have any emissions control on it is going to cause you problems. And I haven't looked at the data on the Duraflame or the wax ones, but for a lot of situations, I don't think they're recommended, especially for fireplaces and things. Not a professional in that, so that's just my gut feeling. I would like to say that for those that do have wood burning appliances and wood burning stoves, is that, you know, this isn't a call to action to have you stop doing it immediately, but it is something that we do put into place as a personal choice. And a lot of times you make those decisions based on what your personal choice is. If you prefer to have wood as a heat source, I think that's fine, as long as you understand that there are some health impacts on using those appliances as well.
So here's a question. Is there a type of filter, if I have a fireplace, is there a type of filter that I could put on my chimney that would allow me to burn wood in the fireplace and improve its efficiency as far as reducing air pollution?
For not being a chimney sweep, that would be a hard one to put anything in your chimney that would slow down the flow from your fireplace or your wood burning stove, I think you could potentially be causing more of a danger to your home and your property than you would do anything else. So unless it's part of the actual appliance and a recommendation by the manufacturer, I'd probably say no.
Great. So here's another one. How many air quality monitoring stations do we have in Albuquerque?
Can I pull up that map?
Yeah, let me go ahead and switch over so that you've got your screen again.
So here's the map, and so what you'll see is we have down here in the South Valley, we have Del Norte High School. We have this one up here, which is the far northeast heights. We have one here in the North Valley, and we have one right here, which is in the Jefferson Singer area. And if anybody's driven down this road in the Jefferson Singer area, can anybody tell me what is just to the west of that? It's the Vulcan. They have an open pit mining there. So we do particulate matter monitoring there. And what's really interesting is if you would think that this would be one of our high sites for particulate matter. In fact, our high site for particulate matter is South Valley.
Wow. Great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing that. Let me pull this back over here. Okay, we got another question here. Is there an optimal time of day to use a grill? Thanks, Kelly.
When you're hungry, I can't. I mean, the grill is really up to it's a small portion of the total volume. I mean, if you're using a smoker that's the size of a small room, then you're probably burning a lot more wood. Really, a small grill for home use, we really don't think is probably a huge issue. A very large outdoor fire pit would probably produce a very large amount of particulate matter.
So what is the difference in the particulate matter created from charcoal versus wood burning in a grill?
So again, well, it depends on what charcoal you're using. One is you're probably producing a different volume and concentration of pollutants. I didn't do any studies on the difference between actual wood and charcoal itself. But if you look at the carbon footprint, the way of making charcoal is you actually burn the wood to a certain point to make charcoal. You're actually not reducing the amount of volume of wood that you're burning. It's just that you're changing where it might be produced.
That's good. I don't think a lot of people know that charcoal is made from burning wood. I mean, that's one of those things.
Notre Dame is a very good example of that. If you look
right.
You're looking at very large chunks of charcoal.
Yeah, it's just common sense, but sometimes you think, well, that bag is something amazing.
Exactly, and that had to be made somewhere, and
right.
There's a good chance that whoever made that may or may not have had controls on it, depending on what the requirements are.
So along that line, another question here: what is well-seasoned wood?
Well-seasoned wood, a lot of it depends on where you live. If you live in a wetter, damp environment where you get a lot more rain, the recommendation is at least 1 year of well-stacked dry wood. You want it to be very dry. The drier it is, the cleaner and the hotter it's going to burn. Wet wood doesn't tend to burn as hot, and it tends to burn at a slower rate than dry wood. It also depends on the type of wood. There's a number of studies out there. If they have additional questions, I'm more than welcome to point them in the right direction.
So, and this goes to this next question: is there a better or cleaner wood that we can burn? For instance, cottonwood versus pine versus oak and maple and pinon.
They all have different ranges of the amount of energy in them that's available. The hotter you can burn the wood, EPA tends to recommend the hotter you can burn the wood, the better. But one thing you have to remember, the hotter that the fire burns, the more fine particulate you're going to produce. The lower temperature wood, you're probably going to produce particulate matter PM10, 10 microns or smaller. It really depends on what you have available to you. The studies I read and the analysis that I saw, the numbers were so far across the board on what wood would burn at a certain ratio, and the BTU that's available in it, it's huge.
So it's actually better just to have really dry wood, no matter what wood we're using, as long as it's super dry.
I think well seasoned, dry, split. You're not throwing a big chunk of log that's this big is going to burn a lot slower and probably at a slower rate and a lower heat than if you put in nice seasoned, well cut, split wood. Yes.
Okay. Here's another one. Is Albuquerque in compliance with health-based standards for particulate matter?
For PM 2.5, we are, and so that's one of the things. If you put in perspective, we're not. So the PM 2.5 from wood smoke isn't causing us a potential issue with the federal standard at the moment. We're around between 50 and 60% of the standard. But it is something that we do see as an impact. And so if we could reduce the amount of PM 2.5 in the area and in the air, we're going to reduce the concentration of PM10 as well, because PM 2.5 is part of the PM10. And in December, and here's a good example, in December of 2017, December 12th, 2017, and December 14th of 2017, we had two events that happened. One was we had very calm winds on the 12th, very quiet day, and our PM10 went up to 126 micrograms per cubic meter. On the 14th, we had a high wind. It wasn't a high wind event, but we had high winds that brought in a lot of dust and other material, and our PM10 concentration was 134. So if you compare the two different events, one being a low wind, high pollutant concentration day to a high wind, high concentration day, they're only a few percentage points away from each other. So both can impact us.
Wow. Here's another question. Why are pellets better than wood, like a pellet soap?
That I can't tell you. My suspicion is that they're processed differently. They're consistently made from similar material. They're typically very dry, and they are typically, it depends on where they're manufactured. They may be debarked, so it may not contain as much material or different material in the pellet itself.
Nice. So it sounds to me like the dryness, I mean, I don't think there's any moisture at all in them, right?
Right, exactly. And if you're storing them outside and they get rained on, you'll probably notice that they burn differently when you put them in your pellet stove. And a pellet stove typically is supported through some type of combustion cycle, and so they tend to burn at a higher heat. Great.
Does the Environmental Health Department still issue no burn days?
We do, but we haven't had one in a long, long time.
And so
primarily, why is that? The no burn was originally established because we went into carbon monoxide non-attainment back in the 80s. Okay. And we've transitioned that to sort of also focus on PM 2.5 because we do see it as an issue during the winter. So it's part of that transition, and it's based primarily on how it impacts our pollution data. Carbon monoxide is so low on our radar. We're in the 20% of standard. PM 2.5 still 50, 60 some percent of the standard. It's not something that typically impacts the pollution data itself. So that's typically why you don't see no burn called very often, because we just don't see it as an impact.
Wow. Here's a question from Ed. How does the EHD come up with the 2014 NEI estimates for benzene?
I'll give you someone to call and talk to because I do not do the NEI data.
Okay, great. We'll make sure that information is available. So awesome.
He's within our department, so he's easy to get a hold of.
Good. So actually, if they call you,
yes,
to get a hold of you, we can get a hold of
him. More than happy to. Yep.
Great. Fantastic. Okay. Are there any more questions that we have out there for Dan on this topic? It's fascinating. I think air is something we take for granted. We just breathe it in and breathe it out. And I think a lot of times we just think about automobiles being the #1 pollutant. which actually is an interesting thought because next month you guys are coming back to talk about another air pollutants, right? That is
Right.
something we're not even thinking about. That's an issue that we're going to be dealing with as well.
You just want me to give you a quick little spot on that?
Yeah, why don't you give us all a little warm up?
We're going to be talking about ozone. Last year, our ozone concentration got high enough that we are 100% of the standard. Even though we're 100% of the standard, we're still in attainment for ozone. There's a good chance that we could exceed that standard this year, depending on what our summer weather is like. So I know that EHD is starting to implement a campaign to educate citizens as to what they can do to help reduce the ozone and the precursors that generate ozone during the summer. Great. I think we're talking about that May, what was it again?
May 16th, and I'll prep everybody for that in a few minutes. So is there any other questions, any more questions for Dan in relation to wood burning? I think obviously we're coming out of winter time now. I do think it's really, really interesting, the data as it shows what natural gas, heating oil, how low those really are. Because, sometimes we just think, well, this is natural, this is sustainable. But we have, it's always a balance, right? The cost and cause and effect, cost versus the return, and what's really, really happening. So, if there are no other questions, I just want to thank you very much, Dan, for coming on and talking with us about this and really informing us as a team and as a city, so that we can really make sure that we're finding ways to continue to be sustainable, continue to be resilient, continue to be green. Obviously, what we do is we're bringing all of these to everybody every month, so that we can make sure we can find different ways that. We talked first about solid waste, and we talked about recycling, and then we talked for 2 weeks, 2 separate weeks, actually 2 separate months about transportation and transit and technology. And we're focusing this month and next month on environmental health and air quality. So we definitely want everybody to continue to tune in and continue to stay engaged and involved in what we're doing during these lunch and learns. And we really appreciate all the work that you're doing in environmental health. And so I just want to thank you again, Dan, for being here today and taking the time to be on and dealing with the technology issues we have with these computers and trying to network over our city network here in the basement. So
exactly. I appreciate it, Tom. And
so just to remind everybody, we're doing this again next month, and it's going to be May 16th from 12 to 1. We're going to be talking about air quality with the Environmental Health Department on the Lunch and Learn series here at PSU from the Green Team. And we're going to be talking about ozone. It's going to be really exciting, and we hope that you all come. One other thing I want to remind everybody that's on this webinar right now is Monday, the 22nd of this month, is Earth Day. And the Green Team is participating in Earth Day all across the city. We're doing different activities as well here. And so we want to just encourage you all to get involved, make a difference. If you're on the Green Team or you're working in your departments with your Green Team representative, please participate in Earth Day. It's a great opportunity for us to learn, to be educated on what it means to be sustainable. And we want to make sure that we contribute and do our part. So until next time, we thank you very much for being here today, and we will see you next time. Take care, you all. Bye-bye.